Hello friends, welcome back to the course on spectroscopic methods of analysis. Today we will start with UV visible spectroscopy. In this first part on UV visible spectroscopy, we will talk about the origin of UV visible spectrum and the absorbing species in that. The session is planned as follows, that is, to begin with, we will briefly review what we have done so far in these sessions. Thereafter, we will come down to defining what is UV visible spectroscopy and talk about the origin of the spectrum. Having done that, we will move on to the absorbing species. That is the main theme of today's session actually. So, we will spend a lot of time on the absorbing species. We will talk about absorbing species in terms of the organic molecules which absorb UV visible radiation. Then we will come down to the inorganic species relevant for this. Then towards the end, we will try to sum up what we do in today's session. Okay. Let us recall what we have done so far. What we have done so far is basically in past 3 sessions, we have talked about the basic aspects of spectroscopy, wherein we started by defining what is spectroscopy, and we defined it to be the interaction of radiation and matter, that is the study of interaction of radiation and matter. And then thereafter we talked about the nature and characteristics of EM radiation. Then we moved on to the discussion on the nature of the matter, that is atoms and molecules. Primarily we focused on to the quantum mechanical nature of that. Then we focused attention on to the interaction between the radiation and matter. Having done that, we talked about the spectra which come as a consequence of the interaction of radiation and matter. And then once we had learned about the spectra, we talked about different types of spectra we come across. Then we discussed in detail about different characteristics of a spectrum, that is the position, width and intensity and things like that. That is all what we have done so far. Okay. Now, let us move further and talk about UV visible spectroscopy. That is, this is the first molecular spectroscopic method which we are taking up in this course now. UV visible spectroscopy essentially is one of the earliest spectroscopic methods which is available to us, and that actually is based on molecular absorption, because this is a molecular spectroscopic method there. And this finds wide variety of applications in terms of the quantitative and qualitative determination of the analyte. That is, analyte essentially is anything which we want to determine there. So, the quantitative part of it, that is how much of the analyte is there, and qualitative part of it, that is what is the analyte over there. So, all this is taken care of by UV visible spectroscopy in a very wide range of applications there. UV visible spectroscopy also finds a lot of applications in terms of study of interaction of the 2 different kinds of molecules, 2 or more than 2 molecules, how do they interact, that also falls in the domain of UV visible spectroscopy. We will talk in detail about these applications at a later stage. Okay. Now, as regards the origin of this basically the UV visible spectroscopy, as the name suggests, is spectroscopy method which comes as a consequence of interaction of radiation in the UV visible range with matter. It could be, primarily we talk about the molecules over there, and this involves the transition amongst the electronic energy levels of the molecules there. We talk about that, we talked about it earlier too, because we know that in case of molecules, the electronic, vibrational and rotational energy levels, they all are quantized. So, when the radiation in the UV visible range comes and interacts with molecule, it causes transition amongst the electronic energy levels there. Since it involves transition amongst the electronic energy levels, it is also called as electronic spectroscopy. Okay. So, that is about what is UV visible spectroscopy. Now, let us first talk little about what is this UV visible range, because we talked about in one of the earlier sessions about electromagnetic spectrum, that is a whole spread of all kind of EM radiations there. Now, this picture shows you a blown up version of some portion of that EM spectrum there. If you look carefully over here, for UV visible spectroscopy point of view, essentially this region from about 200 nanometers to about 780 nanometers is the region of interest for us, because that is the one which is relevant to us. And how to remember what is this region? Let us look at this, because this is the visible spectrum there. This is about from 400 nanometers, around 380, 390 nanometers to about 780 nanometers. So, this is my WIBGYOR. Now, the region beyond this red is called as infrared, and the region below this violet part is called as ultraviolet. So, that is how they are placed. So, UV, visible and IR is there. And further, in case of UV also we see that is the near UV, that means immediately prior to this violet part is the near UV, and further down is the vacuum UV or far UV here. And here again in IR also there are two regions there, we will talk about that at a later stage as well, that is the near IR and far IR over there. Okay. Now, what is important here is to understand that if you look at the energies of this, so energy of this radiation here, say about 780 nanometers or so, is about 160 kilojoules per mole, and at this end of it about 200 nanometers is about 600 kilojoules. So, this energies, that is the energies of this radiation essentially are of the same magnitude as is the delta E values of the electronic energy levels of the molecules there. That is why this interactions come into play. Okay. Now, what happens is when I take radiation from this region, say UV visible region, say ultraviolet or the visible radiation, and make it interact with the molecules, then what happens? What happens is that there are electronic transitions there, as we saw earlier too. Now, if you see, what you see in this diagram here is, that is we have a transition from somewhere here. So, this is my electronic ground state of the molecule, this is electronic steady state over there, and these the energy levels shown in terms of designation as V naught and so on and so forth, they are the vibration energy levels, and these finer lines here are the rotation energy levels there. So, what you see is in this transition the system has gone from say lower electronic energy level to higher electronic energy level, there is electronic excitation, but simultaneously there is a vibrational excitation as well. See, it is from V1 level, it has gone to V2 level, and here also even the rotational levels also have got changed there. So, typically whenever there is a electronic transition taking place, that is accompanied by the rotational and vibration transitions also there. Okay. Now, when this radiation in the UV visible range interacts with molecules, it causes the transitions there, and that transitions translate in, we can see it experimentally. What basically happens is you have a sample taken in a container there, you give a radiation in the UV visible range, that comes, partly it gets absorbed, and what comes out as a transmitted radiation happens to be of lower intensity there. So, this P naught, that is a radiant power which is incident on the system, and what comes out here, the two are different there. And the relationship between this P naught and P is very, very important for us from the quantitative determination of the analyte. We will talk in lot detail about this in the next session. Okay. Let us go further. Let us go further and see that when this radiation in the UV visible range interacts with the molecules, it causes electron transitions, and so that interaction results into a spectrum which looks something like this. This is a typical representative spectrum over here, and what you see is that any spectrum, because in the last session we talked in detail about the characteristics of a spectrum. So, what you see is that in this spectrum, so there are two signals there, two bands over there. This is around say 208 nanometers, this is around 228 nanometers or so. So, there are two bands there, this is more intense one, this is a lesser intense one there. So, these are the locations there. So, these are intensities, this is a narrow band, this is a broad band. So, all this we have discussed earlier, I am not spending any more time on this. Basically, I am sure that you recall from your earlier session that what are the characteristics, the intensity, position and the width. Okay. That is about the spectrum what we get as a consequence of interaction between the radiation and matter. Further, what we see is when we try to do this kind of interaction between UV visible radiation and matter, we find that the nature of spectrum I get depends on the physical state of the analyte. Now, suppose I take my molecular system happens to be say in the vapor phase. If I take the molecular system in the vapor phase, let the radiation come and interact with it, the spectrum I get looks something like this. There is a number of signals over there which are closely spaced over there. But if I take the similar system and take it in the solution phase, the spectrum comes something like this. What happens now? What happens is that in case of the molecules in the vapor phase, the molecules are in random motion, but they are quite far from each other. So, we get certain kind of spectra depending on the energy levels in the molecule. But when I take the same molecule into a solution now, in case of a solution, this target molecule which I am trying to study here, that is in constant interaction with the solvent molecules, and when the solvent molecules interact, they collide with my target molecule, and what happens is, say this is my molecule here, there is some kind of electron distribution over there. So, when the solvent comes and interacts with this, so the outer part of it, that is the peripheral electrons of the molecule, they get dented over there, that means they get hit over there. So, the disturbance, there is some kind of slight disturbance in the distribution, and that leads to some change in the energy levels over there. So, accordingly, there is some kind of a spread of frequencies coming there. So, what you get is a smoothened kind of a spectrum there. So, spectrum will depend on what is the physical state of the analyte there. Okay. Now, let us go further and see that what are the different kind of absorbing species we have for study in the UV visible range or UV visible spectroscopy, so to say. There are typically we come across the organic molecules or the inorganic species, and within inorganic species we can talk about the transition metal ions and their complexes, we can talk about lanthanides and actinides, also we can talk about some kind of charge transfer complexes. I will talk in detail about all these kind of interactions there. Okay. Let us begin with the organic molecules. Now, if you look at an organic molecule, if you take any molecule, say benzene, toluene, you take name any molecule, we can talk about that. Now, when we talk about a molecule, and in a molecule if I want to look at what are different electronic energy levels, essentially I have to take recourse to the molecular orbital theory. And according to molecular orbital theory, I am just showing you a generalized MO energy level diagram for a molecule there. So, for an organic molecule, typically what we have is we have got following kind of molecular orbital energy levels there, or so called electronic energy levels there. So, they happen to be sigma molecular orbital, pi, and that is non-bonding, pi star and sigma star. And this also tells us that this is a relative disposition of different energy levels there. So, that is the sigma levels are of the lowest energy and sigma star is of the highest energy there. Okay. So, these are different possible molecular orbitals or the electronic energy levels of a molecule. In a molecule, when we try to fill all available electrons into these molecular orbitals, we find that typically all the bonding molecular orbitals are completely filled, and even this non-bonding also are filled over there. When that happens, then in this whole scheme, in a molecular orbital energy level diagram, so to say, the highest occupied molecular orbital, that is the molecular orbital which is occupied, that is in this case as shown over here, this n happens to be HOMO, that is highest occupied molecular orbital, it is called as HOMO. And the next orbital there, this is called as LUMO, that is lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. Now, when I give energy to this, now this is molecule as such, when I give radiation, when the radiation is absorbed, what basically happens is this molecule system, say the electron in the HOMO, highest occupied molecular orbital, takes up this energy and goes to the higher energy level, that is LUMO. So, essentially in case of UV visible spectroscopy, the transition happened to be from HOMO to LUMO molecular orbitals there. Okay. Now, let us go further and see that in this, if I take a generalized molecular orbital energy level diagram for organic molecule, what are different possible transitions there? Let us look at that. Transitions could be say n to pi star, that means start from n orbital to a pi star molecular orbital there, or it could be pi to pi star, it could be n to sigma star, it could be pi to sigma star, or it could be sigma to pi star or sigma to sigma star. So, there are possibilities, that is we have got wide range of possibilities there, the transitions which can take place when the radiation and matter interact. However, when we actually observe the spectrum, we find that only not all the transitions are observed, only certain transitions are observed, and that will be determined by the so called selection rules and energies required over there. And as we really look at what we observe, we find that the transitions we mentioned earlier too in one of the earlier sessions, that is the transitions which are not allowed, so to say, or that means the ones for which the transition dipole moment or the transition probability happens to be very small or close to 0, they are termed as forbidden transitions there. And grossly speaking, typically whenever there is an interaction of UV visible radiation with organic molecules, we find that it is the n to pi star transition and pi to pi star transition, they are the most commonly observed transitions in case of UV visible spectroscopy. Another thing what we observe is that the transitions which are forbidden, they may be observed sometimes, but that will be of very small or low intensity over there. So, there is a general observations we have about the interaction of radiation in UV visible range with molecules over there, or organic molecules to be more specific there. Now, we find that in this whole thing, this is the transition N to pi star and pi to pi star, they are the ones which are the most commonly observed transitions there. Okay. Let us focus attention on to these transitions now. Okay. Now, let us move further and look at one more aspect of UV visible spectroscopy, that this is I am showing the diagram all over again. What you find is that this region here, say from 100 to about 200 nanometers, this is the so called far UV region. This is also termed written here as vacuum UV. What basically happens is, though this also falls in the UV range, but this is normally not observed, for the reason that when I take radiation in this range, say 150 nanometers, 160 nanometers, make it interact with the molecule, what we find is that in the system here, the absorbing system I have taken, this could be oxygen is always there. So, that oxygen absorbs that. If I take a gaseous sample, the oxygen absorption will be much more over there. So, since oxygen is always there, that will absorb this radiation, and as a consequence, what we will be getting as a spectrum will not be a true representation of the molecule of choice to us or molecule of interest to us. So, typically the presence of oxygen in the atmosphere obscures or interferes with the interaction there. So, we normally do not do that. In case we want to study this range, then probably we have to use some kind of a sophisticated instrumentation. We have to use some kind of a vacuum there, so that we can eliminate all oxygen from the system and then try to make the interaction there. And also we have to probably bring in a lot of nitrogen over there, so that atmosphere becomes it is a nitrogen atmosphere, so we can make the interaction there. Normally this is not used, because this is not a typical requirement, because general requirements happen to be served by the interaction in the range of from 200 to about 750 nanometers, 770 nanometers there. Let us go further and see that what are these transitions what we come across in case of organic molecules. Let us look at two transitions we mentioned earlier, that is pi to pi star and N to pi star, and see what are the important things in that. As the name suggests, pi to pi star transition, this will be observed only when the molecule contains pi electrons. Suppose I take a saturated aliphatic hydrocarbon, so there is no pi electron in that. So, in that case, the molecular orbitals will be only sigma and sigma star, and that is all. So, in that case, the transition will be only sigma to sigma star, which will be of very high energy, which will come down to maybe 150 or less than 200 nanometers, which will not be observed. Okay. So, if I look at this example here, so this is ethylene. In case of ethylene, so this is a transition from pi 1 to pi 2. This is observed around 171 nanometers, which again is in the vacuum UV range. We do not observe this in a typical spectrum there. But if I take this molecule and conjugate it with a double bond over there, say I talk about say butadiene, buta 1,3-diene. So, in this case what you find is when there is a conjugation, there is a double bond there, there is a pi to pi star transition. Suppose there are two double bonds in conjugation with each other, that means a conjugation means there is a double bond, there is a single bond, there is a double bond. So, when they conjugate, what happens is the energy of the excited state, that is the pi star orbital, becomes less, that of the pi orbital becomes more. As a consequence, this delta E value now happens to be less there. Suppose in this case there were two energy levels there, pi 1, pi 2, here there will be 4 energy levels, pi 1, pi 2, pi 3, pi 4, and the transition what we will be observing will be from pi 2 to pi 3, and this will have a lower delta E value. If I go to hexatriene, this will be still lesser there. So, as the conjugation increases, we find that the energy difference between the HOMO and LUMO, that is the main energy levels involved in the transition, that goes on decreasing. As delta E decreases, the wavelength delta, that is the lambda value, will increase there. That is the wavelength comes at a higher value there. That is, the spectrum will be observed at higher wavelength over there. Okay. Let us take a typical example here, is that of lycopene. Lycopene is the pigment which is responsible for the red color of the tomatoes there. Now, if we look at the structure of lycopene, we find that there are about 11 double bonds there, which all are conjugated. As a consequence, lycopene absorbs radiation beyond 400 nanometers, that is why this is red in color. So, that is what I am trying to convey here is that is the conjugation plays an important role in making this transition come into the visible range, because we will see that for ethylene it was just less than 200 nanometers, butadiene 217. If you go on further, so you go on adding more and more double bonds, we find that lambda max shifts to from UV to visible range, and what you see is the color in this case there. Okay. Let us go further and look at N to pi star transition. N to pi star transition will be observed wherein the molecule contains a lone pair, because that N will come only when the lone pairs are there, and typically acetone is one example there. So, what you see is the energy level diagram in this case. This is a similar one which I showed you earlier. So, here there are two possible transitions there. One is say N to pi star, one is pi to pi star. Pi to pi star will be there because there is a conjugation in that case, there is a double bond in case of acetone. And this N to pi star is there because of the lone pairs on the oxygen atom, they are getting excited to the pi star molecular orbital there. So, what you see from this diagram here is that it is a delta E value of N to pi star transition happens to be less than that of the pi to pi star. As a consequence, this N to pi star transition will be observed at a higher wavelength there. So, typically what we see is that if I have a molecule there, a saturated molecule, but if I bring in some kind of a heteroatom like nitrogen, sulfur or halogens, wherein there can be non-bonding electrons, then we find that lambda max shifts to higher wavelengths there. Okay, that is a typical observation what we have in such kinds of organic molecules there. Okay, let us go further and see that like in case of pi to pi star transition, N to pi star transition also gets shifted to higher wavelength because of conjugation there. So, you look at this is acetone there. For this, these are two transitions there, 274 nanometers and 195 nanometer there. That is typical in case of our acetone molecule there. But what happens is, if I make this carbonyl group of acetone conjugated with a double bond here, we find that the energy level is like this, and the delta E values for this N to pi star and pi to pi star. This is a very schematic kind of a diagram. This is not the actual picture what will be there, but just to make the point clear over here, we find that the delta values decrease. As a consequence, the lambda max increases for both the transitions there. So, we find that is from 274 it becomes 331, from 195 it becomes 203 nanometers there. So, essentially the point I want to bring home is that whenever there is a conjugation, that conjugation will lead to shift in the wavelength to a higher wavelength side. That is about pi to pi star and also N to pi star transitions there. Let us go further and just make a general observation there. Typically pi to pi star transitions have got the transition dipole moment for them is more. So, typically they are intense transitions there. As against that, the N to pi star transitions are weaker ones there. So, this is a spectrum for acetone here. So, this is pi to pi transition. We see that it is an intense transition there, that is a higher intensity is there, and this N to pi star is a smaller band over there. It is a weak transition there, and that is the general observation what we have in case of organic molecules. Okay. Let us move further. Let us move further, and we find that these two transitions, because whenever we talk about the interaction of organic molecules with the UV visible radiation, these N to pi star and pi to pi star transitions are the most crucial ones there. And we also find that these two transitions, N to pi star and pi to pi star, both of them are sensitive to the nature of the solvent over there. Let us look at that. So, what basically happens is that if I use, suppose I take a given molecule, run the spectrum in a say non-polar solvent there, I get certain spectrum. Now I change the solvent to a polar system there. We find that the spectrum will shift, spectrum will change, and that is because of the nature of solvent there. What basically happens is that suppose I have a given molecule, there are certain energy levels there. Let us say this is my HOMO level there, this is a LUMO level, there is a transition from here to here. Say let us take pi to pi star transition now. Now suppose I bring in a solvent which is polar. This polar solvent or any solvent for the matter interacts differentially with these two energy levels. As a consequence, the energy of these levels gets altered there. So maybe this becomes less, this becomes more, or both of them become less, or whatever. As a consequence, the delta E value between these two transitions, these two energy levels gets changed. As a consequence, the spectrum will be shifted. The position of the band will get shifted over there. Let us look at that. Now, as I mentioned earlier too, that is the effect of solvent will depend on what kind of transition I am talking about. It will be different for N to pi star transition and pi to pi star transition. Let us look at what happens if I change the solvent to for a pi to pi star transition there. Now, pi to pi star transition, essentially this is my level 1, say pi to pi star. This is a transition I am talking about that comes at certain value of delta E. So, that will correspond to some lambda max 1. Okay. Now, if I bring in a polar solvent, the polar solvent will interact, because this is my level there, level 1, level 2, pi to pi star, there is a transition there. Now, when I bring in the solvent, what happens is the solvent interacts with both these levels there. As a consequence, this level, the pi star level, happens to be more polar. As a consequence, in the presence of polar solvent, this becomes stabilized, and this is lesser polar there. So, this also gets stabilized, but to lesser extent there. Let us look at this picture here, that will be better here. That is, from pi to pi star, we find that pi star gets, the energy of pi star decreases by certain number like this, certain value like this, that a pi decreases, but to a lesser extent there. As a consequence, this delta E value now becomes less than that of delta E of the original transition there. As a consequence, what will happen is the lambda max value will shift to a higher wavelength, because delta E decreases, lambda max will go to a higher wavelength there, because there is a inverse proportionality between the wavelength and the energy. Okay. Let us move further and see that what happens in case of N to pi star transition. In case of N to pi star transition, here again, if I bring in the polar solvent, we find that this interacts differentially between the two energy levels there, but it stabilizes. This is my N to pi star initial transition there, N level to pi star transition there. This is my delta E value there, comes at certain wavelength there. Okay. Now, when I bring in the solvent which is polar, so this N level becomes stabilized to a large extent there, whereas pi star does not get shifted to same extent over there. As a consequence, this delta E value now becomes more. Since delta E becomes more, what we find is that is the lambda max will shift to a lower wavelength there. So, that is a typical effect of bringing in a polar solvent on the N to pi star and pi to pi star transitions there. Let us move further and talk about, because we talked so far about the organic molecules, what are organic molecules, what are different energy levels in them, and what kind of interactions come in, and what are the main transitions observed in case of organic molecules, and how are they shifted or altered in presence of the solvent there. Okay. Now, let us move on to inorganic species. When we talk about inorganic species, we will talk in terms of three possibilities there. One, the transition metal ions and then their complexes, and second is lanthanides and actinides, and the third is about charge transfer complexes there. Let us begin with the transition metal ions first. You must have studied from your school also, that is the solutions of transition metal ions are weakly colored. So, this picture shows you some solutions here of transition metal ions. We find that they are colored there, and the color of these solutions is because of the DD transitions, because the transition metal ions are the ones wherein the valence electrons are in the d orbitals there. There are two exceptions there. Exceptions happen to be the D0 and D10, because there is no unpaired electron in that case. So, there will not be any transitions of DD type. So, they will not be colored, but all other transition metal ions will be faintly colored because of the DD transitions, and the color is faint or weak because these DD transitions actually are so called symmetry forbidden, or called as Laporte forbidden transitions there. That means, they are not allowed. So, since they are not allowed, they may still happen, but they will be of lower intensity. That is why this color is very, very faint over there. That is about the transition metal ions. Now, we also know from our school days that the transition metal ions form wide variety of complexes. When they form complexes, what you find is, and then most of these complexes happen to be colored. And why does the color come in this? Let us have a look at it. Here again, the color will come because of the DD transitions, but these DD transitions are different from what we had in case of just the transition metal ions themselves. What happens is like this. So, we have got, these are the d orbitals of the transition metal ion. Suppose ligand, there is a metal ion there, there are ligands. Ligands come, bind to this, make a complex. When the two make a complex, because of this, you must have learnt about the crystal field theory and ligand field theory. So, when the ligands come, because of the presence of ligands, the degeneracy of this d orbitals gets lifted over there, and what you have is, this is a familiar picture I am sure, that is, there is a T2G level, there is an EG level there. So, the transition between these levels they are the ones which are responsible for the color of the complexes what we get in case of the transition metals there. That means, the complexes of transition metal ions are colored because of the DG transitions amongst these energy levels, that is from T to DG to EG or other levels like that. That will depend on the what is the nature of the ligand and also what is the kind of a the shape of the complex over there, the geometry of the complex. We are not getting into details of that. What's important is that in case of transition metal ions, the transitions are DD transitions. In case of the complexes of transition metal ions, the transitions are again a DD, but between the energy levels which have been obtained as a consequence of lifting of degeneracy because of the ligand fields there. Okay. Let us move further and talk about the lanthanides and actinides. Lanthanides and actinides, I am sure that we all know what they are. So, in that case, like in case of transition metal ions, our valence electrons are in the d orbitals there. So, there are dd transitions. In case of lanthanides and actinides, what we have is, we have what is called as FF transitions, and spectrum looks something like this, which is the nature of spectrum in case of lanthanides and actinides happens to be slightly different from what we have in case of transition metal ions. The reason being that these F electrons are deep inside, and so they are lesser influenced by the external things like solvent and things like that there. So, the spectrum, the nature of spectrum is different, but the origin is similar one, that is from there in case of transition metal ions we had DD transitions, here we have got FF transitions there. Okay. Let us move further and talk about a very important class of inorganic species which are responsible for the color there, that is called as a charge transfer complexes. As the name suggests, there is a transfer of charge, and these charge transfer complexes are formed whenever there is a complex formation between two kind of species, one which is electron donor, one which is electron acceptor there. So, when that happens, in that case the color, the origin of color is because of the transition from that means the transfer of electrons from the donor to the acceptor orbitals over there. Let us look at that. Typically, whenever the radiation is absorbed, we find that the complex transfers an electron from a donor orbital to an acceptor orbital there, and this is where it falls into visible range, and what you find is the complex has got a distinct color over there. Let us look at a very simplified version of this whole concept here. Let us look at this picture. So, what you find is, say this is representation of donor there, that means we have got a donor species there. So, this is HOMO, that is a HOMO of donor, this is a LUMO, that means that is the delta E value, and this happens to be fairly large. As a consequence, this does not fall in the visible range, the molecule is not colored, the species is not colored. Similarly, acceptor also, this delta E also happens to be fairly large. Here again, this happens to be beyond or outside the visible range, the molecule species is still not colored there. But when the two form a complex, then what happens? Then what happens is, you can have energy level diagram of something of this kind, that is, the blue ones are the acceptor energy levels there, the red ones here are the kind of a donor energy levels there. So, when the two intersperse, we find that the transition now can take place from this HOMO here to this LUMO, and this delta E value happens to be fairly small. Since delta E becomes less, so this falls in the visible range and the species becomes colored. So, that is the way we can visualize or understand the development of a color in a charge transfer complex there. Going further, there are two types of charge transfer complexes we can come across. Let us look at this, and they happen to be as follows, because what I am showing here is, this is the d orbitals of the metal there, and these are the molecular orbitals of the ligand there. This is sigma, pi and pi star and so on and so forth. Now, when the complex formation is there between this metal ion and this ligand there, we find that this is the energy level diagram what we have here. Now, from our earlier understanding of molecular orbital theory between hetero systems there, we find that whenever the molecular orbitals are formed by interaction between two dissimilar kind of species there, we find that in this case particularly what we will find is that these molecular orbitals will have more contribution of these orbitals from the ligand, whereas these energy levels there or these orbitals, molecular orbitals will be having more component of the metal orbitals over there. Now suppose you can have transitions like this. You can have a transition from this level to say this level, all these transitions shown in blue here. So, they all originate from the energy levels, say level this one and this one, and both of these have got a significant component of the ligand molecular orbital there. Now, since major component of this molecular orbital happens to be the orbitals from the ligand there, so this is referred to as LMCT, ligand to metal charge transfer. That means, when there is a transition from this level to this level, so this is the level which pertains to the metal, more of metal there. So, when the electron goes from here to here, we say it is LMCT, that is ligand to metal charge transfer. Other possibilities could be, as shown in red over here, we find that the transitions could be from here to here. Now, if we look at this between this metal and then this ligand orbital over there, so these orbitals, these two are primarily that of the metal there, and this one has got a more component of the ligand here. So, if I have a transition from here to here or from here to here, this will be primarily charge transfer from the metal to the ligand. So, this is called as MLCT, metal to ligand charge transfer there. Okay. Now, let us sum up what we have done today. What basically we have done today is, we started by reviewing the contents of the previous session, that is what we did earlier, and thereafter we defined what is UV visible spectroscopy and explained its origin in terms of the transition amongst the electronic energy levels of the molecule there. And thereafter we focused our attention primarily onto the different types of species which absorb radiation in the UV visible region, or they are relevant for the UV visible spectroscopy, and explained type of transitions which occur over there, and also the factors which affect these transitions there. In the next session, we will talk about the principle of UV visible spectrometry. We will talk about what is this spectrometry and how do we use UV visible spectrometry for the quantification of the analyte. That will be taken up in the next session. Thank you.